year ago, I thought I understood what rock bottom meant, but rock bottom isn't a single moment. It's 1,000 tiny humiliations. A mother who calls to say, maybe you provoked him. A husband who comes home late and smells like someone else's perfume. An apartment full of photos that feel like proof I never really belonged anywhere. The worst part isn't the anger. It's how quickly you learn to make yourself small. It's apologizing for the way you breathe or the way you fold towels or how loud you set the dinner plates down after another silent fight. You keep waiting for someone to notice you're hurting, but all you get is, you're being dramatic. Don't air dirty laundry. Every marriage has problems. 2 weeks ago, I came home early and watched my husband Evan at the kitchen table whispering into his phone. He didn't notice I was there. Or maybe he did. I stood in that doorway a long time, wondering if I should say something or just leave, because some part of me already knew this was the last time I'd ever ask anyone for permission to be angry. Monday night, 6:47 p.m. I walked in with a bag of groceries keys clattering on the counter and found Evan hunched over his phone, voice low, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. He didn't look up, not even when I stepped into the kitchen. I tried to ignore the feeling like ice water spilling down my back, but then his voice shifted. He laughed, soft, careful. He only ever laughed like that for other people. I started unpacking the bags louder than I meant to. He finally glanced up. "Hey, you're home early." I shrugged. Work let out early. Surprise. He turned the phone face down. The screen flashed Tiffany W. My heart dropped. "Don't be dramatic. You don't know anything yet." I cleared my throat. "Who was that?" He barely hesitated. "Jason from the office. Lie number 1. Not even creative." I gripped the loaf of bread so tight I thought I'd crush it. "Dinner's almost ready," I said, voice so normal I wanted to punch myself. He didn't notice, didn't care. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw his phone across the room. Instead, I stacked cans in the cupboard and told myself, don't give him a reason to say you're crazy. Not yet. The chicken burned. The rice stuck to the pan. Evan scrolled TikTok, still smiling at someone I'd never met. By the time we sat down to eat, I was silent. So was he. In the space between us, 1,000 truths gathered like dust. He finally said, "Is something wrong?" I shook my head, because the truth was I wasn't ready for the answer. Not yet. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight bleeding across the cheap blinds and the cold shape of Evan's body already missing from the bed. I reached over for his pillow, empty, still faintly warm. For a moment, I lay there staring at the ceiling fan wobbling overhead, counting the cracks in the plaster. I tried to remember when it had become normal for him to be gone before sunrise and for me to pretend not to notice. Down the hall, the coffee pot gurgled. He was in the kitchen talking on the phone again. My chest clenched, but my feet still moved on autopilot. I shuffled in, trying to be quiet, trying to be small. I could hear him whisper, "No, she's asleep. Don't worry. I told you I'll call you later." I paused at the doorway, heart pounding. He hung up, looked up. A flicker of surprise, then that too easy smile. "You're up early," he said. I tried to smile back, but my lips felt numb. "Don't start a fight. Don't let him say you're crazy." I poured myself coffee, hands steady, only because I forced them to be. He asked, "You working late tonight?" I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "Cool. I'll probably just order takeout." He was already halfway out the door, keys jangling. I watched him go, mug pressed to my chest like armor. The apartment was so quiet I could hear the echo of my own heartbeat. My phone buzzed a text from Mom. Did you cook for Evan last night? Did he like it? Remember, men work hard. Don't nag him. I stared at the message until the words blurred. Suddenly, I was 12 again, packing my brother's lunch because Mom said, "You're the girl you help." Dad coming home drunk, yelling if his dinner wasn't hot. Me learning how to disappear into corners, how to never take up space. My whole life was a lesson in making myself easy to live with. Evan's infidelity wasn't a surprise. It was a pattern, a script I'd been handed by people who said they loved me. But that morning, I did something different. I opened his laptop. Not because I was proud of it, but because survival isn't always pretty. I found messages, hundreds of them. Tiffany W., her photo, her emojis, her late-night "I miss yous," the way he told her Rachel just doesn't get me. Each line like a paper cut. I scrolled not because I needed proof, but because I needed to see how far he'd go to rewrite the story of who I was. When Evan came home that night, I was waiting. I didn't shout, didn't throw anything, didn't beg. I just asked, "Who's Tiffany?" He froze. The silence that followed was the kind you feel in your bones. He said she's just a friend from the gym. I didn't believe him. He knew it. And for the first time, I didn't apologize for it. That was the moment something changed. I didn't confront him for closure. I confronted him so I could stop pretending. Because rock bottom is not the end. It's the ground you finally push off from. 3 days after I caught Evan's messages, I drove to my parents' house for Sunday dinner. It was the kind of place where nothing changed: yellowing wallpaper, a dusty cuckoo clock, and my brother Tommy's trophies still lined up on the living room shelf like he'd won a Nobel instead of skipping college. Mom greeted me with a smile stretched too tight. "Did you and Evan have a fight?" she whispered in the hallway before I'd even taken off my coat. Dad never looked up from his recliner TV blaring baseball highlights. I swallowed. "He cheated on me, Mom, with someone from his gym. I have proof." She clicked her tongue. "All men make mistakes, Rachel. Don't go blowing things up over some texts." I stared at her, searching for the mother who'd told me to never settle for less. But she was already fussing over Tommy's lunch, refilling his soda, asking if he wanted extra dessert. Tommy barely nodded in my direction. "You look tired. You should try smiling more." My jaw clenched. For a second, I wanted to scream, but old habits die hard. I helped Mom set the table. I poured Dad's drink. I asked Tommy about work, though I knew he'd been fired again last month. No one asked about me. No one wondered how I was sleeping or if I needed a place to stay. Dinner was roast chicken and cold potatoes. Mom talked about coupons. Dad grunted. Tommy scrolled his phone. Afterwards, as I washed the dishes, Mom leaned in. "Sweetheart, don't make trouble. Men get restless. You just have to give them space. Don't nag." Something inside me snapped. I set the plate down, wiped my hands, and looked her in the eye. "Mom, if I were dying, would you tell me to take an aspirin and keep quiet?" She blinked, surprised. "Don't be dramatic." I took a breath, steady, fierce. "I'm not being dramatic. I'm being honest. And I'm done pretending that being a good wife or a good daughter means letting people hurt me." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she turned away, busying herself with a towel. I grabbed my coat and keys. As I walked out, Tommy called after me. "You should be grateful. At least you have someone." I didn't look back. That night, for the first time, I didn't cry. I didn't ask for anyone's blessing. I just locked the door to my own apartment, sat on the floor, and let the silence settle around me like armor. Maybe I wasn't good, but I was done being small. Wednesday. Rain against the windows, city lights smeared in the glass. I sat on the edge of my own bed suitcase, half-packed, the hum of the dryer the only thing filling the air. Evan hadn't come home for 2 days. He'd stopped texting, stopped explaining, like the silence itself was the answer. My phone vibrated a message from Tiffany W. Just 3 words, "I'm sorry, truly." I stared at it, thumb hovering over the reply. I wanted to scream at her to ask how she could, why she would. But deep down, I knew she wasn't the reason. She was just a symptom of a life I'd been told to survive, not to choose. That night, I called Emily Grant, the only friend who hadn't told me to wait it out. She picked up on the first ring. "Are you safe?" she asked. I didn't trust my voice. I nodded, even though she couldn't see. "Do you want to come over?" I hesitated. "I think I need to be alone. Really alone." There was a pause then, a soft, "Okay, but call me if you change your mind." After I hung up, I sat in the quiet, letting the weight of everything settle. No parents who'd let me hide. No husband who'd lie to keep me there. No brother to absorb the blame. Just me. And for the first time, I felt not strong, not healed, not over it, just clear. I packed a bag. I wrote a note, short, unsentimental, "I'm leaving. I deserve better. I don't need your apology, Rachel." I left it on the kitchen table. I locked the door behind me, took the elevator down suitcase wheels, echoing in the empty hallway, and stepped out into the wet street. The rain stung. My breath made clouds in the air. But each step felt less like running away and more like claiming ground I'd forgotten belonged to me. At a cheap motel, I paid cash. A single queen bed, scratchy blanket, broken lamp. But the room was mine in a way nothing had been in years. I lay awake listening to the heater clank and the city whisper outside, and whispered back just to prove I could choose myself. Sunday, late afternoon. I sat by the window in the motel room, steam curling from a mug of cheap coffee, watching the city slow down for sunset. My phone buzzed a text from Evan. "We should talk. For closure." I stared at the screen. Closure. For him or for me, I almost ignored it. But something in me wanted to see him, wanted to prove to myself that I didn't need anything he had left to offer. We met at a chain diner off the highway. He was already there, hunched over his phone, spinning his wedding ring on the tabletop. He looked tired, older, like guilt hadn't helped him sleep either. When I walked in, he stood, managed a weak smile. "Rachel, thanks for coming." I sat across from him, hands folded. I waited. He took a breath. "I messed up, I know that. I don't want to be the bad guy in your story." I let the silence work. He tried again. Tiffany reached out. "She feels awful. Said you were kind to her. I never meant for things to go this far." I watched the condensation slide down my glass. "What did you want from me, Evan?" he faltered. "I don't know. Maybe forgiveness, maybe to understand how we ended up here." He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in years. I finally spoke, calm, steady. "You wanted me to carry it all for you. The blame, the shame, the work. You wanted me to fix what you broke and to be grateful for the chance." He flinched. "I'm not angry anymore," I said, and it was true. "I'm tired, and I'm done." He looked down. "I'm sorry, Rachel." I nodded. "Me too." We split the bill. He left first. I didn't cry. I didn't watch him go. I sat in that cheap vinyl booth, the sun slanting across the linoleum floor, and realized I felt lighter. Not healed, not happy, but lighter. Back in my room, I messaged Tiffany. "No hard feelings, take care of yourself." she replied 2 minutes later. "Thank you for everything. I hope you find someone who sees you." I smiled, closed the chat, and started to write, not to beg for love or apologize for leaving, but to remind myself that the hardest stories to end are the ones you lived in silence. And I was done being silent. It was a humid Saturday when I rang the bell at my parents' house for the first time since I left Evan. Mom opened the door. She looked me up and down, suitcase in hand circles under my eyes, hair pulled back in a loose knot. For once she didn't try to fix a thing. Dad grunted from his recliner, never pausing the football game. Tommy sprawled on the couch, shoes on the coffee table. Mom motioned me in. "You could have called first." I stepped inside. The familiar smell of pot roast and lemon cleaner hit me, and I nearly turned around right there. But I stood my ground, because I was here for me, not for comfort. At dinner, the old script played out. Mom fussed over Tommy's third helping. Dad asked me why I looked so tired, and when I told him I'd left Evan, the room went quiet. Tommy piped up, "You couldn't just work it out. Divorce is expensive, you know." Mom's lips pressed into a line. "What will people say, Rachel? A woman alone." I put my fork down. I said, "Steady. I'm not here for pity or advice. I'm here because I needed you, and you weren't there." Dad turned the volume up. "You always did want too much." The words hit but didn't break. I said all I ever wanted was to be safe and loved. That isn't too much. Tommy scoffed. "Maybe you should try being less dramatic." Mom tried to hush him, but I held up a hand. "No, let him speak. Because I want it clear, I will not shrink so you can be comfortable. I will not keep secrets to protect your pride. I will not take less just because you think I don't deserve more." They stared. No one moved. No one comforted. But no one stopped me either. I stood up, picked up my suitcase, said I'm done being the family's doormat, and walked out. That night, I rented a tiny basement studio with a window that barely let in sunlight. I called Emily. She brought over takeout and a bottle of cheap wine. We ate on the floor, and for the first time in my life, I felt free. Not rich, not found, but free. Before bed, I wrote in my notebook, "You don't need their blessing. You only need your own." And finally, I believed it. Early mornings, late nights, and too many instant noodles. That's what freedom looked like at first. My new apartment was tiny. The pipes clanged at midnight, but no one raised their voice at me. No one tracked what time I came home, and every mug in the cupboard belonged to me. I got a job temping at a law office, answering phones and filing paperwork. The pay was terrible. The clients were worse. But I liked the order of it, the sense that everything had a place and that place was earned. Emily texted encouragement. Tiffany sent a meme about survival. Some nights I still woke up reaching for old pain but found only silence. One afternoon, after a long day of alphabetizing case files, the managing partner, Jason Hughes, stopped at my desk. "You're overqualified for this," he said not unkindly. I shrugged. "Overqualified for chaos, maybe." He laughed, then offered, "If you're serious about law, we have a paralegal training program. You could start fresh. Actually use your voice." Something inside me sparked a flicker of ambition I'd forgotten. I took the application home and stared at it under my one good lamp. Thought about all the times I'd let someone else speak for me. Then I filled it out one careful line at a time. Weeks passed. I balanced work classes and healing. Some days it felt like the world was still too loud and I was still too small. But each time I sat with Emily or laughed with Tiffany over coffee or saw my own name on a file at work, I felt a little stronger. I didn't need to be perfect. I just needed to be present. One Friday night, Jason found me in the break room. You know, he said you've got a knack for cutting through the noise. People listen to you. I smiled, surprised. I never thought of myself as loud. He shook his head. Loud isn't power. Clarity is. I went home that night and wrote in my notebook, power isn't what you take from others. It's what you refuse to give away. And for the first time, I dreamed of a future that was mine. No apologies, no explanations, just possibility. Spring turned the city soft and green. I'd finished the paralegal program, survived long enough to get a real offer, a desk with my name on it, a pay stub that meant rent would be paid early, not late. But what mattered more were the women who found their way to me. The woman at the bus stop, silent bruises fading under her makeup, clutching a folder of divorce papers. The intern who asked for a reference, whispering that she didn't want to go home anymore. The mother in the waiting room, wide-eyed, holding her daughter's hand too tight. They came because I listened. Not with pity, not with rescue, but with a truth I'd learned the hard way. You don't need anyone's blessing to save yourself. Emily and I started a small support group. It wasn't fancy, just coffee cheap. Pastries, a group chat that never slept. Tiffany even joined once, her hair shorter, her voice stronger. We talked about what it meant to leave, to start over, to want more. Megan Lee, my new media partner, reached out after seeing my story online. You make people believe survival is possible, she said. I laughed. I'm not sure I believe it myself yet. She grinned. That's why they believe you. We recorded a podcast, shared resources, helped 3 women find lawyers before the month was out. Each time I watched someone else stand up, even if just for a moment, I felt a little more whole. Mom called one night, not to scold, not to guilt trip. She just said, I left your father, I'm staying at Aunt Sharon's. There was a pause. I waited for her to say, I'm sorry, or you were right. Instead, she asked, voice small, will I be okay? I answered steady as stone, you already are. You just forgot. She cried soft, quiet, the way I used to. And for the first time, I didn't try to fix her. I just listened. That week, I helped my mother file her own paperwork. At the courthouse, as she signed her name, I saw her hands tremble the way mine used to. But when it was done, she smiled. Thank you, Rachel. I squeezed her hand. No more apologizing, okay? We don't owe anyone that. She nodded, and just like that, the cycle broke right there at a scratched wooden table under bad fluorescent lights. On my way home, I thought, this is what freedom feels like. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of choice. Summer crept in gently. I moved out of the studio basement and into a sunlit 1-bedroom. My first real place, all mine walls, I could paint plants. I wouldn't kill no one to tiptoe around. My mom spent weekends there sometimes. We sat in the kitchen brewing coffee that was always a little too strong. Her telling stories she'd never dared voice when Dad was listening. Emily and I made it a ritual. Friday takeout wine laughter that spilled into the hallway. Tiffany brought donuts and new beginnings, her name now a signature, at her own design business. Sometimes I caught myself in the mirror, shoulders, back, jaw set, and almost didn't recognize the woman standing there. She wasn't scared anymore. She wasn't angry either. She was present. Mom got her own apartment. Her hair grew out silver at the temples. She made new friends, women who called to invite her to book clubs and garden parties. She sent me photos, sunflowers blooming on her windowsill, a cake she baked for herself. "I feel like I'm learning to be alive again," she texted. I replied, "You always were. It's just quieter now." At work, Jason promoted me officially, not because I asked, because he said, "You don't shrink from hard things. We need more of that here." I took cases that scared me, stood up for women who didn't yet know how to stand for themselves. I made mistakes, forgot lunch, lost sleep once, even cried in a bathroom stall. But I never, not once, wished for my old life back. One August morning, as I watered my plants, my phone buzzed. A message from Dad. Just 2 words, "Happy birthday." No apology, no explanation. I didn't answer, because forgiveness isn't owed. It's chosen. And I'd chosen myself. That night, after everyone had gone home, I sat on the windowsill, city lights, blinking outside, cat curled on my lap. I wrote in my notebook, "Home isn't where you started. It's what you build when you know better. And sometimes it's only after you leave everything behind that you realize you've arrived." For the first time, I believed every word. Autumn, crisp and gold, spread itself over the city. I stood in front of a small group at the community center, women of all ages, stories tangled in their eyes. It was the first meeting of the support circle Emily and I had dreamed up in the darkest nights. I told my story not as a confession, not for pity, but as proof that life after loss was possible. I watched as other women spoke for the first time, voices trembling then growing stronger. Some cried, some laughed at memories that used to break them. We drank coffee that was too bitter, shared cookies someone had burned, traded advice and phone numbers. It wasn't therapy, it wasn't magic, but it was real. At home, I curled up on the couch. Window cracked a gentle breeze, rustling the pages of my old notebook. A knock at the door, Emily holding a pie, grinning. "Thought you could use dessert." We ate on the floor just like in the early days. Do you ever think she asked that all of this? Every hard thing led you here? I thought about Evan, about Dad, about the hollow years spent making myself small enough to fit in someone else's world. I thought about Mom's new smile, Tiffany's business, Megan's emails from across the country, the women who found their own freedom with a little help. I looked around at my own home, my own laughter, the space I'd claimed and never given up, and I said I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I wouldn't trade who I am now for who I was before. Emily nodded. "To new endings," she said. I lifted my mug of toast just for us, to new endings. Later, as I closed my notebook, I wrote one last thing. This is what surviving looks like, not a victory parade, not a happy ending in every chapter, just a quiet room, a good friend, and the knowledge that I am still unbreakable. And as the city went quiet and autumn pressed its gold against the window, I knew I wasn't waiting for anyone's permission anymore. I was home,